if you've been in sales for a long time and you've been in the game for a while, you're going to go through some rough patches. 100%. I haven't met someone that hit 50 quarters in a row. It's just not going to happen. It's not realistic. Things are out of your control. But what you need to do is control what you can control. And that's your self-development. That's what you can learn from every step in the cycle. That's on you taking the initiative and learning from others and their craft and people that are 2 or 3 years ahead of you. That's what I didn't do early in my career. I was like, I can do this. Come on, I don't need the help. And then I got punched in the face, like you said, and I had to take it on my own.
Welcome to the Rising Leader Podcast, bringing forth the new wave of rising leadership and helping leaders find purpose, connection, and results. This is your host, founder of Alluviance, Alex Kremer. All right, y'all, what is up? And welcome to the Rising Leader Podcast. This is your host, Alex Kremer. If this is your first time to the show, we welcome you. The purpose of the show is to bring forth the new wave of rising leadership to help people feel a greater sense of purpose, a greater sense of self-connection, connection with others, and oh, by the way, to drive great freaking results. So I am pumped about today's conversation. We got the awesome, the amazing Mr. Salman Mohiuddin. Welcome to the show, Salman. Good to see you, man.
Good to see you as well, Alex. Pleasure being here. Appreciate the opportunity.
Dude, it is good to see you. I've been following you for a good amount of time. I feel like every single day I open up my LinkedIn, I'm like, yo, that is a good little nugget here to be bringing into my day. So Salman, I'm going to kind of give a little bit of an introduction, a background in terms of who you are, and then I'm going to let you fill in the gaps of where I might have missed things. So first off, you're the founder of Salman Sales Academy. You are helping AEs, SDRs, and sales teams find and close more deals. You're boosting income. You're boosting revenue. This is an awesome stat. When I was looking at your website, you've had 67 quota-carrying quarters within technology sales across 17 years. You worked at companies like Salesforce, IBM, Asana. You've been in the trenches quite a bit. And you've held so many different types of roles from SDR, SMB AE, mid-market AE, enterprise AE, strategic AE. You've done it all. And you are just in such a great level of service providing back to the tech sales or just overall sales community to support people and hitting the goals that they're trying to hit. So how did I do, Salman? I guess, did I miss anything? Is there any good nuggets that you're like, oh, yeah, but like, what about this about me?
You missed one thing, Alex, which most people don't know, so that's okay. I'll give you a pass. But in 2003, I came in second place in a slam dunk contest. So, it wasn't the NBA slam dunk contest. Some people get confused. No, I was not in the NBA, but it was a league that we were in, and it was a weekend festivity, and I came in second place, and I'm pretty damn proud of it.
Okay, that is a phenomenal fact. Was this a 10-foot hoop that you were slam dunking? You can dunk on it. You can dunk?
I could. I just turned, I'm 40 now. Back then, I was in my very early 20s, and I was throwing it down with the best of them. So, yeah, it was 10 foot, Alex, all the way. Not anymore. It's been a while, but...
What was the move that you did that got you to second place? Please tell me it was a windmill or something like that.
No, I bounced it and just dunked it. It was a bounce, alley-oop to myself and threw it down. This other guy was just doing like double pumps and windmills. So I was like, okay, yeah, I got to stop out here.
Oh my God. Did you get a medal or anything? Do you still have the medal?
I'm trying to look for video footage, man. This is 2003 when we had flip phones. So I'm looking for video footage.
People had the full on like video camera out and were recording it. Oh my God. Well, I'm just kind of really excited to get into a little bit more about your journey. What's really cool is, you mentioned you've been in sales in an individual contributor role since 2006. So you've been through a lot of different eras of technology. You've seen it boom and go back down and then boom again and then go back down. And even in today's era, it feels like, are we in a recession? I am not sure. We might be. We might not be. But I love just, you are providing such great strategies and tactics to the sales world. And you really, if you look at, the Salman Sales Academy online, I mean, you have so many great videos and just pieces that, people can implement like right away. I would love to learn, like, where did you learn all of this? Like, was it just simply by you being in the role, or did you go about invest into yourself? Was there a specific person that just like mentored and invested into you? Like, where did you gain all of this knowledge and this experience?
Yeah. So you see, Alex, like, and you know from your experience, you've been working at some world class companies like the Microsofts and the Outreaches and the Catalysts, and I'm sure you can attest that sales is full of peaks and valleys. You're going to have ups, you're going to have downs, and I went through a lot of valleys early in my career, so much so that I went through that first recession of 08, 09 in my career, which was tough, and I fought through it. But I also was put on a PIP, a performance improvement plan, early in my career. And that's what really, you know, I put my head down. I was distraught. I was like, is sales even right for me? And I kind of looked in the mirror and asked myself, what could I be doing better?
Mm.
What can I do at this early part of my career if I want to be successful in sales? Or should I just call it in and, use my economics degree that I graduated with and find a job in finance? And I realized that it was on me. The reason that I struggled early in my career was not because I didn't have a great manager. It wasn't because, I didn't have the resources available at my fingertip. It was on me not being able to really uh, be self-aware and put in 100% effort and invest in my self-development. So I put my head down for a while when I was put in that position on a PIP. But then I realized that if I'm going to get out of this hole, if I'm going to take my game to another level as a salesperson, it has to come from me. So what I started doing is I started learning from all of my experiences, deals that I've lost. What could I have done better? Deals that I won. What could I replicate that worked for me that I can apply moving forward? And I started documenting and also learning from top sellers on my team in my organization and sitting down with them and understanding their craft. And given all this documentation and learning, I started applying that. And every year I started getting better. And that's what helped me take my game to the next level.
Mm. So what I'm hearing from you, it was almost out of necessity that drove your hunger to become better, because we're all in sales, and then once you get put on a PIP, it's like, oh shit, like, now what do I need to do? It's kind of like what does Mike Tyson say? It's like everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face, and sometimes that punch in the face is a very necessary driver. And so you get put on this PIP, and you're like, all right, I think this is the time that I need to start really investing into myself, or at least being intentional with it.
100%. And that's what it comes down to sometimes. Like, if you've been in sales for a long time and you've been in the game for a while, you're going to go through some rough patches. 100%. I haven't met someone that hit, 50 quarters in a row. It's just not going to happen. It's not realistic. Things are out of your control. But what you need to do is control what you can control. And that's your self development. That's what you can learn from every step in the cycle. That's on you taking the initiative and learning from others and their craft and people that are 2 or 3 years ahead of you. That's what I didn't do early in my career. I was like, I can do this. Come on, I don't need the help. And then I got punched in the face, like you said, and I had to take it on my own.
Yeah. I'm curious, was there a specific person through your career, and there could be more than one too, that really stuck out to you, that you say, man, if it wasn't for this person and their mentorship and really them just opening up and being willing to take me under their wing, I wouldn't be where I am today. Do you have, one or two of those people?
I'll be transparent. No, there wasn't one or two individuals. It was typically what I did is within each role, I try to identify 2 or 3 people that I could learn from and really just observe their craft, whether it was listening to calls, whether it was shadowing them, whether it was just observing to see how they articulated themselves in front of customers, in front of their managers, in front of colleagues, and really honing in on that craft. One thing, like I'm a person of faith. The one thing that really I consistently, you know, really hook myself up to is God. Having faith in God, having trust in God, because for me, what I found is the most rare quality in sales today, and I'm sure you can attest to this, is being patient, right? Being patient, because we're living in a world today where we live in a world of instant gratification, right? If we send that email out, we want to get that reply right away from an executive. We want to get that deal in before end of month or end of quarter, and we'll do anything to get it over. But sometimes if we act in that way, we'll do things in haste. We'll do things that are maybe undermining our values or not something we would do in a normal situation. And for me, what I've learned is that if you want to be successful, yes, you got to be resilient. Yes, you got to put in the effort. Yes, you got to be self-aware and self-develop. But you got to be patient at the same time, because things take time. And it took time for me.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really good perspective right there. And especially, I remember when I was younger in my sales career, and in many ways, I still feel like I'm very young in my sales career. There was a hunger and a zest to move into management as quickly as possible. And I remember I got done with like 2 years in a closing role at Microsoft, and I talked to my managers like, I think I'm ready to like move into management. Like, how do we do this? And they're like, slow down, young buck. Like, you got a few more cycles to go until you really understand what it actually takes. And, even to this day, as I'm coaching and developing younger reps, whether it's an SDR trying to move into an AE role, an SMB AE trying to move into a mid-market or an enterprise type of role, there's definitely hey, you might know a lot of really good information. You might have developed the frameworks and maybe even the confidence, but there's something about just the simple aspect of time. You need to go through it and the experience of it to gain the wisdom. And, even as you're saying, like 67 quota carrying quarters, like that's a lot right there. And a lot of emotions, I'm assuming, up and down within those quarters.
Yeah, you're right. You're totally right. And, I'm glad you bring up the thought about moving into leadership, because, I think a lot of folks early in their career have certain goals, right? And those goals could be different, right? For anyone. Like earlier, it could be moving into sales leadership. It could be honing in on their skills and becoming an individual contributor and trying to go into an enterprise role eventually. It could be realizing that sales is even good for you or right for you, and you decide to go to a customer success or marketing role, right? Which is fine, right? But what I found personally for me, like you might look at it, oh, why were you an individual contributor for so long? I get that question sometimes. Did you ever thought about going into management? And for me personally, I had certain goals to hit. Personally, I wanted to get to enterprise sales. I wanted to cover the big banks and insurers in Canada. That was my goal from the start. Personally, I wanted to close those big strategic deals, but it took a lot of time. Right, I was at IBM for about 6 or 7 years. Moved to a startup in between that for a bit of time, and it just didn't work out. And then I went to Salesforce, and it took me 10 and a half years, just over 10 years, to break into my first enterprise sales role. I went through SDR, SMB, mid market. You know, it took a lot of time. And it was because of those ups and downs. It was because of, layoffs, and even a PIP. And that's why I tell people, like, if you have a goal in mind, it may not come, right away. It takes time. And for some people, it does. For some people, they move into enterprise roles in a few years. But for me, it didn't. But it taught me that to be patient. It taught me that you got to invest in your self development. You got to invest in yourself. And, I wanted to cover those big banks, and there's certain income goals that I had. There's certain deal sizes that I wanted to close, and I eventually got to that point. And now I can say I've achieved everything that I wanted to achieve. Now, there was actually one funny story where there was an opportunity for leadership that came up, but I decided to not move forward with it because, a funny story, the leadership team kind of asked me, "Hey, are you okay doing meetings on the weekends? Like, we have weekly Saturday and Sunday leadership meetings for about an hour and a half. And then, honestly, man, when they asked that question, you know what went through my mind? I was like, Saturday mornings, I like to sleep in. Saturday mornings, I like to have a nice laid out breakfast with my family. I got 3 girls at home with pancakes and French toast, and I'm not missing out on those opportunities. So I told them, thanks, but no thanks. So it's a side story there.
Who's doing Saturday and Sunday meetings? I'm like, that's just not a culture I want to be a part of. That's like you're taking your job a little too seriously if you're doing that. But I love that. And so you got 3 daughters at home, and one thing that you mentioned earlier, and I just want to double click into, and then sometimes it's a little, people don't always like to talk about this on podcasts, but how like this is one of the favorite things to talk about is you talk about, hey, your faith and God is a big part of what's driven you within your career, with you as a sales professional. And I'm assuming as part of your faith, and then there's your family too, and especially having three young daughters, that's such an important part. There's one thing of like, can you be driven by pain, or can you be driven by a goal, or driven by something good? There's 2 different ways to enroll yourself, and also, even in sales, do you want to sell towards the pain, or do you want to sell towards the vitamin? But I would love if you would expand on like, how has your faith, how has that impacted you as a sales professional, and even what you have done as you've started your own company, as you're starting to provide so much value to other sales professionals?
Yeah, totally. I really like this topic because, when I first started posting on LinkedIn, I talked a little bit about the fact that, I don't drink. I don't drink alcohol for religious reasons and faith-based reasons. And, I think that's an important topic because there's folks in sales that don't drink for a variety of reasons. Maybe it's religious, maybe it's because they've been sober, maybe they have family history, maybe it's health reasons. That's one aspect. And, faith is also about having values and not compromising on your values. And sometimes in sales, that can be difficult. You can put in certain situations when you're closing deals, when you're working with customers, where maybe you're doing something that doesn't align with your values, and you have to look in the mirror and saying, is this really the right thing to do for me? And what's funny is that when I started in my professional sales career at IBM in '06 and companies like that, even now, but really back then, there was a big drinking culture. And if you didn't drink, you weren't part of the club, or you were kind of left out. And, surprisingly enough, there was certain times in my career at these type of companies where, I was joked around or mocked for not drinking, or, I was not part of the club, or, people would look at me funny because everyone was drinking and my customers and I wasn't, right? But for me personally, yeah, early on, it was a bit tough, but I tell people that didn't affect me moving forward. Like, hey, I've been a pretty damn good seller for a long time, and I didn't have to chug down a couple of cold ones to close a deal. I had to really build a relationship with someone, build that trust, build a point of view, understand pains and challenges, and align them to priorities. You don't need to drink to be able to do that. And, if I could tell myself I can align to my values without compromising them and still be successful, that's what I tell people. Then do it, right? And you don't have to, undermine your values to be successful in sales. So I think that's really helped me throughout my career.
Yeah, I respect the fact that it's, hey, I have boundaries and standards. Like, this is who I am and how I show up and what I believe in, and I'm not going to bend them to simply meet what other people want, or what society is doing, or what sales is doing. And I know, I wasn't, in the 2006 IBM era, but I've heard many different stories of there was a drinking culture, and there's a lot more of another type of culture when you include, sex, alcohol, all that sort of stuff, or drugs, all that sort of stuff. But to be able to remain sovereign within that, I think is super admirable. And it also really ties into, like, if you couldn't rely on that, you had to rely on your ability as a great sales professional, as uncovering needs, getting multi-threaded, building strong business cases. Like, it was almost like your thing that you couldn't do caused you to become an expert and sensational at what other people were lackadaisical on. And look where it ended up taking you.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And one thing that I want to call out, and you bring up some really good points, is that I don't have anything against people who drink. Like it's fine. Like I respect you. I'm in sales. Well, how could I hate anyone that that drinks? Like it's part of this relationship building and happy hours and all that. But I think there needs to be mutual respect on both sides. And I think a lot of things have improved over the last. You see a lot of folks on LinkedIn that I follow that talk about being sober for a certain amount of time, and how it was tough early on, but now they've been able to really open up. And I love hearing stories like that. There needs to be mutual respect on both sides, and that's what matters in the end.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, what's really interesting to tie this in, like, my experience, um, probably in like my until 25, 26, I was drinking a decent amount, a little bit more than I wanted to. It was like the Thursday night, then I would have a Lagunitas IPA, which is a really heavy beer. And I remember after 3 of those, I'd be like, I'm full from these. And, ever since even being in New York and moving down here to Austin, I've found that I don't want to say it's going out of style, because there's definitely a lot of people who still drink, but it's becoming a lot more common for people to not want to do that, and just to remain sober in some sort of way. Um, Hang on there, I'm getting a little feedback on this.
Okay.
Can you hear the feedback?
I don't hear it. I hear you pretty clearly.
Okay. All right. Interesting. I'm not sure why that is happening. I'm going to try to work through it.
Okay.
So one thing that you are now doing within Salman Sales Academy is you're coaching and you're training, hundreds, if not thousands, of sales professionals at this point. I would just be curious, when you are coaching and training them, how do you coach and train? What is your methodology around that? How do you think about developing a sales professional?
Yeah, that's a great question, Alex. And I would even take a step back before I even consider that I might be a good fit or they may be a good fit for me to coach. Is I do what I would do for the last 17 years, and that's go through a discovery call. So, for example, I had 2 discovery calls this morning with clients and prospects that reached out saying, "Hey, I'm interested in your coaching services." And I could sit down and tell them how great I can help you and all the amazing services that I have, and here are my testimonials. But I don't do that. I take a step back saying, "Hey, first of all, what inspired you to reach out, and help me understand a little bit about what you've been doing for the last few years. Help me understand the areas that you're looking to level up and why you're looking to level up." So I take a step back to understand, hey, why are we here today? What inspires you about selling? And where do you feel the gaps are right now? And trying to uncover what those are. And once I uncover, hey, maybe it's I need to level up my discovery process because I'm getting stuck in the cycle, or hey, every time I do a demo, the customer kind of ghosts me and I'm not able to take control of my deals. Or, hey, I'm having trouble prospecting and getting more meetings. I try to understand why that's happening. I try to understand what the root cause is. And I also try to understand a very key point, which is, you know, what's stopping you from leveraging your internal resources and the enablement of your manager. And I try to understand that before I recommend how I can help. And then to your question around how do I know what to coach them on, and then on those sessions, I understand everything and really hone in on the key aspects that they're looking to level up and where I believe they can really benefit from, and teach those aspects. And one thing that's really, really important to me, Alex, is that I tell everyone this: everything that I share with you, it's not going to be fluff. It's not going to be high level, surface level stuff. It's going to be absolute actionable content that you can start using right away in your role. And if used the right way, you'll see results. And that's something I do every time I write a LinkedIn post. I read it and make sure, is this something actionable that people can start using right away? So that's what I tell people, to make sure that they're getting the most out of their investment.
All right. Cool. All right, Salman. So I have a question here for you. So when you are coaching sales professionals, what are you seeing as some of the common themes or trends that people are needing most right now? Because one of the things that I'm typically seeing is, people are really hungry for the sales tactics and strategies, but at least like my way of coaching a sales professional is supporting them with the inner game, right? Really feeling like they have a greater sense of self-connection. They're excited about what they're selling. They're enrolled into it. There's purpose in what they're selling. And I've always found that when we can do that, the sell becomes a lot more authentic. Like there's some zhuzh behind it. I'm curious, when you are speaking with, sales professionals, what are the typical things that you're seeing and needing to really dive in a lot more with them?
Yeah, so there's two things mainly. Number one is the inability to lock in meaningful meetings with customers. And that's a big concern with a lot of folks. And I'll tell you why. Number one is, hey, Salman, I'm trying my best to lock in meetings. I'm trying to generate interest with their product. I've tried emailing, I tried cold calling, and it's just not happening. And my pipeline is really suffering because of that. That's a big, big concern. But when I dig a little bit more, what I find is that one of the key reasons they're not able to do is because, which is probably the biggest reason, and I write about this a lot, is that they're focused more on the product than the problem, right? And what that means is that when they prospect, when they share their message with cold prospects, they lead with the product. Hey, they lead with capabilities. They lead with features and functionality. For example, if I'm selling a customer data platform, which is essentially, for marketers to, really centralize their data, what they lead with is something like this. Hey, we help customers centralize their disparate customer data so that they can have the data at their fingertips and share personalized experiences for their customers on digital channels in real time, therefore increasing revenue and conversion rates. And that's fine. That's exactly what you do. But here's the problem. You are focusing on your product's language, the solutions language, the capabilities. Your prospects don't care about that. They are busy putting out fires in their day-to-day work. They are dealing with day-to-day problems, trying to hit their goals, trying to figure out how am I going to hit my targets. They're not dealing with you. They don't care about you. So why not lead with the problem? That same sentence that I just said, what if I flipped it over and talked about the prospects language, which is a problem? And I said something like this. Hey, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, what we're finding is a lot of marketing teams find their customer data is scattered across a dozen different systems. It's very difficult to access, and their development team spends hours per day trying to cobble up that data and make sense of it, which results in a lack of personalized experiences for their customers on digital channels, driving down conversion rates and revenue. So you see what I did there? I didn't mention anything about the product. I didn't mention anything about the capabilities, features. I just focused on the prospect's language. That is the biggest thing that I feel is missing. That's number one.
So I want to double click into that, and then let's go into the number two. So it's you're selling the problem, not the solution. And I even know from my time at Outreach and now at Catalyst, if we have that 30-minute initial meeting, we're usually not talking about our product until the final 5 minutes. It's like it's like I almost view there's 4 different like stages of the selling process. First off, you need to sell them on the problem, like get them really like, oh my God, there is a problem here. And then you need to sell them that they should solve it. Like there's a solution to solve it. Then you need to sell them on your product as being the solution that should solve it. And then you're selling them on why now. This is why you should be purchasing our product to solve your problem right now. I'm curious if that's in line with how you think about when and where you're supposed to sell.
Yeah, you nailed it. I love your framework there, Alex. And that's so important. Sell the problem, not the product, because there is no solution without a problem, right? You can't solve something unless you're solving a problem, right? So if you're not uncovering a problem, but the key is uncovering and selling the problem that someone actually cares about, right? like I got a lot of problems in my life. Like I got a backyard fence that's been down for the last my gate on my fence has been down for the last 2 months. That's a problem. I got to fix it, right? I mean, do I care about it among other priorities? It's not at the top of my list, so I haven't really dealt with it. But if you can shed light on a problem that people care about, that acknowledge that more than one person cares about with power, and you can shed light on how it might be impacting them, their team, their business, if you can understand the metrics that are important to that person and how they're being effective, and they can agree on that and say, yes, this is a problem we need to deal with, then you can start talking about how you can sell them on the product. But if
Mm,
you don't have that as a foundation, I'm sorry, you don't have a real deal.
yeah. Yeah. I had an old boss. His name was David Rubenstein. I've mentioned him on this podcast before. And whenever we do this like really big deal review with me as the manager and then the rep, the first thing he'd always ask is, so what's the problem we're solving for? And, if that problem ended up sounding a lot like your value prop, it didn't pass the sniff test. Oh, they're trying to solve for efficiency. Really? That's what they're trying to solve for right now? And so it's just, I love like, what is the problem that we are solving here?
Yeah, and I encourage. I might write something about this on LinkedIn today, but I encourage everyone to go through their pipeline. If the problem sounds pretty much the same across your entire pipeline, that's a problem because you're just talking buzzwords, man. You know?
Yes. It's like we need to have, as reps, as sales professionals, like a healthy amount of skepticism, to all of our deals, or is this passing the sniff test? We're getting a lot of yeses, yeses, yeses. That's not usually common. Are they placating us? Are they just saying the things we want, and at the very end they're going to lose it? It's like, how do we bring that to our opportunities?
Yeah, exactly right.
So, all right, we talked about one. So, selling the problem. What's the second thing you're typically seeing trends that you are seeing that you're helping your clients, your sales professionals with?
Yeah, totally. The second thing, Alex, is I'm losing control of my deal. I'm losing control of my deal. I'm losing control of my prospect throughout the sales cycle. That is the second most common thing I hear. And that control can happen at any point throughout the cycle. But one of the most common places when I bring this up, when people say, hey, I need to have better control of my cycle, I'm losing my deals to no decision, to competition, to price, to budget, whatever it is, right? There's a reason you're losing the deal. And maybe you can uncover it sometimes, maybe you can't. But I tell customers, this is what I do. And this is like proven based on my research, is that the number one place, or one of the most common places, probably the number one place that AEs lose control of their deal is after a demo. They show a demo. People are excited. They're like, wow, this is amazing. Let's talk internally. We'll get back to you. Sayonara. And then you're just playing the catch-up game. You're playing the follow-up game. You never hear back from them. Things go down. How do you take control of your cycle? How do you ensure that you are now controlling what you can control? Because there's some things that are out of your control. I totally get it. But how are you able to take control of your cycle so that you can set expectations with your pipeline and your forecast, that you can truly solve a problem that people care about? Because, and there's a lot of different ways you can do that, right? It's about understanding the problem that you're looking to solve for, tying it to a customer objective or priority, ensuring that the last few minutes of every meeting, you're not trying to fit in everything in your demo because you want to show every feature, but are you taking a step back and outlining, hey, can I provide a recommendation on next steps? Sure. Here's what we can look like, whether that's building a mutual action plan, whether it's outlining a slide of what the next step should look like, whether it's locking in that meeting before you hang up the phone, which is the number one way to ensure you got that next step instead of sending emails saying, does this time work? What can you do to better control your cycle? There's a lot of things you can do, and that's another place that people are kind of struggling with.
I love that. So let me ask you this, because you've been around. This is not me calling you old by any means, but you've been around a little bit. And you sold in 2008 during, the recession, the housing collapse. You sold in the golden age of tech sales, some would say, of 2017 through 2020-ish timeframe, right before, the pandemic. And now you're selling, or you did sell, at least at Asana, in 2023. And I would just be curious, like, what was your favorite time? What was the hardest time? How have things really changed? And how us as sales professionals need to change, but really even how us as human beings and consultants and organizations, companies, corporates are really needing to change. So yeah, talk to me about just kind of the eras and what you've seen evolve over that.
Yeah, totally. So to your point, I sold in the first recession of my career back in 08, 09 at IBM. And I did okay. I did okay, but it was tough. Like we didn't have, first of all, we didn't have tools like LinkedIn Sales Nav. We didn't have the outreaches. We didn't have sequences tools. We didn't have the Slacks of the world. We didn't have the sales lofts. We didn't have any of that, right? You know what we had at IBM back in that day? We had Lotus Notes, which it was an email platform like Outlook that crashed like 3 times a day. And we had a phone, and we had Siebel CRM, which is the crappiest CRM in the world that is on premise. Nobody uses anymore. Like literally, it was just phones and like manual emails being sent out and trying to get past gatekeepers. It was extremely tough to sell in that recession. Now, keep in mind, there wasn't as many competitors in the space as it is today, but it was still hard to get the message across to people, and it was tough. And for me, it was tough because I was a young gun then. I was early in my career. I was looking around, where the hell am I going to get my help from, and how am I going to hit my numbers? But what I did is I learned from that, and I was able to apply those learnings in the next economic downturn. What did I learn from that? I learned 3 or 4 things that you should be able to uncover in every deal. And we talked about this before, is uncovering a problem, a true problem that somebody with power cares about solving, but not just the problem. How is that problem impacting the business? Hey, if you don't solve this, what's going to happen 3 months from now, right? If you're not able to solve this, and understanding what that is. Does it matter to them, or does it not care? It's quantifying that pain. And here's the biggest thing I'm telling you, Alex. The toughest thing to do in sales, in my opinion, in discovery, is quantifying the pain. It's hard to do. It's extremely difficult to do. And it took me a lot of time to master that. So what I did was I took all those learnings from that last recession and applied them to the next recession. So in Asana, I blew up my number 2 years in a row. I finished as the number 1 A on my team. And the reason is because I took those lessons from the last recession where I struggled and applied those learnings now and was able to answer every question. Like literally, if you went through my deals, the majority of deals, I would say 90%, I was able to confidently answer. Is there a problem? Who cares about solving the problem? What is the quantifiable impact? What is the impact to the business? What happens if they don't do it in 3 months? And each of those were very specific to each deal. And if you can do that, you have the building blocks to really have a healthy pipeline. And that is what helped me, really push forward and get better.
Mm. All right. So you learned that in 2008. Like that was kind of the impetus. You're like, okay, if I'm actually going to even get anything across the finish line, like I need to be really buttoned up here. So what happened? So then we went into, 2018 timeframe. That was when the introduction of outreach and, so many, Slack was relevant. It was a completely different game. Did you see the importance still of doing that? Or did you also see other new, because I feel like I'll give an example. If sometimes it felt like the older way of selling was like the salesperson says, I just need to hit quota somehow. That's my whole goal. Just like get the customer to sign, boom, on to the next. I'm making a lot of money. Whereas now I really feel like the role of the sales professional is how are we adding not just value to the client, but also how are we taking on more of an advisor or consultant type of perspective and really guiding them through the evaluation process. And even now, just from my time here at Catalyst, is a lot of it's about, hey, once they become a current customer of yours, how are you getting them to get what we call moments of impact, continual moments that make them realize the value so that you can renew them and then hopefully expand or upsell them. Did you see kind of anything change starting that 28, kind of an onward here to 2023 timeframe?
Yeah, I think I've been in the game long enough, to your point, where I've seen the transformation of tech tools for salespeople that they can leverage. And that can be a good thing and a bad thing. The good thing is that it takes a lot of, a lot of resources off your back in terms of, hey, I can put someone in an automated sequence. Hey, I can, I don't have to worry about follow-ups too much. Hey, if I've had a great call, I can put them on a sequence. Hey, I have LinkedIn Sales Navigator and all these other data tools to really help me manage the way I build relationship with customers. But those are the pros. But the cons are is that, am I getting away from the fundamentals of sales? And I feel that slowly we are. We care about, all these amazing tools and the way that makes our job easier. But are we getting back to the fundamentals of truly leading with the problem and really coming as a trusted advisor? One rule of thumb that I have that I try my best for every single interaction, Alex, is that every interaction that I have with a prospect, whether it's an email, whether it's a quick chat, whether it's a 30-minute call, is there any sort of value add that I'm provided?
Mm.
Is the 30 minutes that the customer's spending with me today, I want to make sure that's the best 30 minutes of their day, that they can go back and say, wow, that call was valuable. Someone really helped me learn something that I didn't know, or he shed light something on something. I go in with every call saying, can I make that happen for the individual? If I can, that was a great call. Yes. Whether it led to a deal or not, I won't worry about that, but they see some sort of value.
Mm.
And if you can enter your calls and enter your deals, putting your prospects' best interest before your own, you'll see success.
Mm. That's a practice. That is not easy at times, especially if you have a manager breathing down your neck saying you're not hitting quota or you're on a PIP. And if you don't close a certain number of revenue, you're going to be gone. And, but it really is, it's like, how do I make it so that if my client wins, I win as well, whether or not I close the deal? It's almost like you're kind of trusting in the sales gods or karma or whatever you want to call it. It's like, hey, as long as I'm putting out good juju here, I can know and I can trust it's going to come back. And at least I'm going to be, considered a more honest, authentic sales professional, and they're going to refer me to people. Or if they don't choose me, like, they're not right. And I will find the people who are right for me. So that's practice though, for sure.
Yeah, and just to double down on that point, you're exactly right. It's tough. Like, being in that quota carrying role for so long, there's a lot of pressure. At the end of the day, like, honestly, it's about hitting your number. If you hit your number, you're on top of the world. If you miss your number or struggling, you flip that script, right? It can be difficult. Really, like, people talk about detaching from the outcome and all that stuff. It's tough. It's not easy, Alex. You know this from your experience. It's not easy. And sometimes you just got to get super, super scrappy at the same time and put in that effort. For example, I tell people a couple of plays. I say, hey, if you've got 2-3 months left in the year, what do? Let's say you have an existing footprint of accounts. Let's say you have, 40 accounts and 10 of them have some sort of footprint. And they have a MSA with you and you're an approved vendor. Don't just sit back and relax and wait for things to come to you. Be proactive. Reach out to other business units across the account that might see value in your solution, or might have a problem that your solution aligns to one of their use cases, and reach out to them. Say something like, hey, we're actually working with Linda in your marketing department. They were facing X problem. Here's the results that they've seen. I think this might align to you, and we're confident we could replicate this with your team. Would you be open to learning more? You do that across your accounts. You're being proactive versus being reactive. And that's what needs to happen. And you're still acting in their best interest. You're saying, hey, you might face a problem. We helped your team. I just want to share some of the love, right? So you got to get scrappy.
Yes. Damn, that's good. That's good. All right, I got 2 more final questions here for you. The first one is this. If you had to just if there's like a sales rep who's been in the game, either just starting or been in the game for a little bit, and you just had to say, like, here's like the one takeaway or words of encouragement or thing that you can do to not just be successful, to also start feeling a level of fulfillment within your job, like, what would you tell that person?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the first thing that I tell people, whether they're in their current role or considering another role, is make sure you have conviction and belief in what you're selling. Listen, like, leadership, having a great leader is important, but those people can come and go. Having a great coworkers and cross-functional teams is very important for your mental state to ensure that you're working with people that you admire and respect. But those people can come and go. What doesn't go usually is a product that you're selling, right? And you want to have conviction that, hey, I'm waking up every morning excited to sell what I'm selling and talk to customers about these problems. Because if you don't have belief and you don't understand the value that you're providing and don't have conviction in it, you could fake it for a while, but you're not going to end up being successful in the long run, and you're not going to end up, waking up excited and enjoying work. So find something you have conviction in. And the second point is be patient. Things take time, and I talked about this before, Alex. Yes, that doesn't mean you put in the effort, work your tail off, invest in your self development, but things take time. It doesn't happen overnight. So if you see your colleagues getting promoted around you from SDR to AE, if you see deals not going your way, be resilient, be patient. There's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes. So good. So good. I love too the first one of like, have conviction in what you're selling. Because especially if you like the solution or you like the problem you're solving, you're going to be interested in it. You're going to want to learn more about it. You're not going to have to force yourself to read the white paper. You're going to want to go out and study it. And that natural conviction, energy, passion for it is going to come out, which I would argue is more important than any words or script that you can tell. And so my last question is this. And I just want to acknowledge you, by the way, of just, kind of how you showed up on this pod here and the passion you have for what you do and the value that I'm really seeing you provide to so many people on LinkedIn, myself. You're in service, which I think is such a great quality in someone to something much greater than you. And so the last question is this. This show is called the Rising Leader Podcast. What do you view as the rising leader?
Yeah. I look at your frame in the background and I say the word gratitude. And I think that is the foundation to, leadership. Number one is being grateful for what you have. You've been blessed to be put in a leadership position. You've been blessed with the opportunity to teach others and people look up to you. Be grateful for that. Check your ego at the door and be humble. That's what it means to me to be a rising leader.
Well said. Well said. Well, Salman, how, if people want to get in touch with you, follow you, what is the best way to do so?
LinkedIn. Just follow me on LinkedIn. Go to my features section. All my stuff is there. And feel free to engage with my content.
Awesome. Well, everybody, appreciate you joining, Salman. Thank you once again, my friend, so much. And everybody have a great and wonderful day. Thanks for listening to the Rising Leader Podcast. Make sure you hit that follow button so you get notified every time a new episode releases. If you know someone who wants to take their lives and their career to the next level, send them this episode so we can all rise together. For more information, check out alluviance.co. We'll see you next time. And in the meantime, keep letting it flow.